So it's been a while since I made a video. Sorry, my desk is a mess. I'm getting back into Arduino stuff lately. But um, this is what I've been working on. The guys got me into playing Grand Theft Auto online, and I'm not much of an online gamer, so I didn't really have much of a setup or anything. And I'm not really enjoying using a keyboard to run around. So I went out and picked up one of the Rock Candy 360 Xbox 360 controllers that just runs off wired USB and works fine. One thing I noticed about the game that I didn't like, I played with the keyboard and mouse for a while, and I really liked how you could change weapons easily with rolling your mouse wheel. On the controller, you needed to do something crazy, like right button plus a stick. It wasn't really good for, in combat application. So we got to talking the other day on TeamSpeak, and somebody was like, "Yeah, man, I hate changing weapons, and it really sucks that it's a different process altogether to change weapons in the car. Because when you're driving, you had to press like X, and same kind of situation. It's really weird." So we started kicking around the idea of what could be better, and then I grabbed onto my mouse randomly and rolled the wheel and said, "Wow, that's simple." And so what I ended up doing, what we all said was like, "Oh, why don't we just throw a mouse inside of the controller? Could that be done?" And we talked about ways of handling it. Throw a second USB cable out the top. I'm like, that'd be kind of annoying. Wireless mouse, you gotta have batteries. But I got to thinking about it a little bit more. I'm like, wait a second. This is a USB controller. Most of these mice are wireless, but they would probably run off of USB power because most mice run off of USB power nowadays. Or, anyway, that's how they work if they're not wireless, they're USB. So, I went to Walmart and did a little shopping. I will say right now, I am not the best at case designs or any of that kind of thing. This is still in very beta mode. I could have made it look a lot cleaner if I had realized that one of the screw posts, I think it's this one, was keeping me from closing this thing all up. So I ended up cutting half the back of this off. But from here, it looks pretty good. You can see a little bit of my board hanging out there. Like I said, it could have been covered up. I had it covered completely at one point, and I didn't know what was causing issues. So I cut the whole back out thinking there was too much pressure on it, and it wasn't. It was just a screw post that was pushing down on the power and ground, resetting the controller. But anyway, here, I'll flip it over for you. So, this is what it is. I went to Walmart, and I picked up the on mouse. I didn't do a build video or anything. I tore it right apart, but it came apart pretty easy. There was like a screw, only one screw that held together down on the bottom of the mouse. It came with some side buttons. I had those going for push to talk from my TeamSpeak, but I really don't care. I use automatic voice, so I ripped them off though. But you could easily leave those buttons on there and added some more buttons to your sides of your controller because they come on a nice little breakout board. But this is all I did. If you take a look at the board, here's your wheel for the mouse. There used to be a button underneath, but when you're playing the game, if you click the button, it does something. So I took that button out, and I also took off a lot of other components. I took off the LED for the mouse. I took off the top buttons are gone. Basically everything that was almost as tall as the wheel, I took off because I was going to try to make this skinny until it got crazy, but it's okay. I ripped out my power wire as I was installing this accidentally, but here's your ground wire going in, and right to the above that is where the power wire goes in. I had to resolder that back in. If I could snake down a little bit, I'll show you how I did things. You can't really tell. If you follow this USB cable that comes from the computer into the controller, you can see that it's got a black and red, which is your power and ground, or ground in VCC. What I did was I ran those through the screw hole. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. They go into a connector, and on this Rock Candy controller, the connector doesn't come apart very easily, and I didn't want to break that. So I ran the power and ground from the mouse through the screw hole. That's right here. I can't really get in there. Yeah, you can't really tell. You can see it with a naked eye, but that's about it. Anyway, I ran it through the screw hole into the back side of that, where that connector mounts, and where it's actually labeled very nicely, ground, VCC, and, IO, whatever that's, whatever, it's for the data transmission for the USB, the sending information back and forth. But it works great. I would start up a round of Grand Theft Auto, but my computer would take forever to do that. Maybe I'll pause the video and do that. But yeah, it fits comfortably. It's still pretty ergonomic. It's kind of a normal feel, especially if you're used to playing with Xbox 360 controllers with battery packs. For anybody who's going to attempt the build, you're definitely going to want a desoldering iron to desolder some of that other stuff, and you're going to need a hot glue gun, because that's how I held it down. I hot glued over the electrical components on this side of the board and glued it down, and then I hot glued a little bit right there, but that needs to be fixed. And then all that hot glue is not necessarily to hold the board there, it's to cover up all those pins from grounding out against that capacitor that's there and whatever else is on the Xbox controller. If I studied this board a little bit, I might have been able to cut out some of the fat and, made the board smaller, because on the other side you got your typical green PCB looking thing, and you could follow all the traces. And I probably could have followed the traces from this guy, over into this processing unit where it runs, and then kept anything that it was involved in that, in the wheel operation. But I didn't. But yeah, that's my controller, and it works flawlessly, man. The wheel, if you do decide to copy the build, the wheel will pop out and fall over the place when you take the controller apart for the first time. What you need to do is you need to just put a dab of hot glue on the tip of the spoke that goes into this sensor. And one more thing, there is a switch on the mouse. If you buy a mouse with a switch, here's the bottom of it. Right here, there's an on-off switch. And what I found was that luckily I plugged this all in to test it before I put it back together and hot glued anything. But I found that my switch came from factory in the on position. So I flipped it thinking I was doing the right thing when I was cycling through. And it didn't work. I'm like, shit, doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. Checked all my connections, and then I'm like, oh, wait, let me try that switch in the other position. And so I had to flip it back. So what I would say is, before you take it apart, flip your switch, because the switch is going to fall apart, and it'll be a tiny little tack switch that you'll barely notice. And you might want to connect it, too. I did not connect my mouse to the wireless, or to the Bluetooth USB receiver. What I did was, it had like an old Nintendo type pad on it, where if you'd ever taken apart a controller or anything before, it'll be a squiggly circle. There'd be a squiggly circle that is made of contact material, but it's got lines like this, and when something is pressed against them, it makes contact. That's kind of how mine was built, and what I had to do was take my finger in a piece of tin foil and touch that real quick, and that connected everything. But yeah, I'll plug it right in. Windows will load up the drivers. If you have Rock Candy controller and you're trying to use it on PC, you need to do some other stuff, but that's outside of the scope of my video. But as you see, green light comes on normal. Oh, and here's a good way to demonstrate. Here's my photo bucket. I'm loading it up right now. But if you roll the wheel, it works fine. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm glad to help out on any builds.